Okay, of course the name is thinking out loud, but yeah, we can rename it after it started.
Are we live? Just with a different name.
I think we're live. I don't know. Can someone click?
Hello?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but with the different title.
Yeah, but it's fine. We can rename
Yeah.
the video
Yeah.
right there.
Nice. All right. Well, let's get started then. Welcome everyone. So this is our fourth Spec 3.0 meeting, where we will be discussing different aspects of the next major version. Today we only have a few items on the agenda by me. Before you're getting into the agenda, does anyone have any questions or anything they want to discuss beforehand? No. Yeah. So last Monday we had a small discussion. Me, Ayush, and Fran participated in the discussion about how we can define a collection of applications. The recording are out, so you can watch it on YouTube. And I made a little bit of a recap in the end with different timestamps in terms of if you just want to watch a specific discussion around a specific subject. We are planning to do another live discussion next Monday, same format. This time a bit longer, since I was only able to stream 40 minutes with a private account. So next time it will be using another one. We will start at 16 UTC again. And yeah, we'll just continue the discussion from basically where we left off. But yeah, we had some really good discussions about also in terms of something I haven't even thought about. So yeah, highly recommend you check it out. Does anyone have any questions for that specific part?
Nope, but I will be sure to check out the video. Thanks, man. I was on vacation last week. Otherwise, I would have been there, and it sounds like a great discussion.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. All right. So about the splitting out the different JSON schema definitions, I actually wanted to ask Fran and Lucas in terms of, and I guess Dale became a maintainer as well for the repository, right? I think he did.
Yes, we merged
that's
yesterday.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, like, what's the next step? What are we like? Is there anything you need from me to continue it? Anything that needs to be defined better?
You followed up with my comments, right?
Yeah, should have.
Okay, so I just have to check. I don't remember really. I left some comments, but I don't remember much from it. It was before my holidays, but yeah, I definitely will have a look this week. And I think we agreed already that it has to get in, but it's not. Is it next major? Did we agree already that it's a breaking change? I just don't remember. I remember that we had this discussion, but
yeah, it's kind of up to how, like, what we define as a breaking change, right? Because we are changing the IDs of the schemas, which means that the bundled version is gonna be a breaking change for the parser itself. This means that it's not compatible without changing. I do have a PR in progress to change it for the parser, but it's still a breaking change, I would say.
And why is it? Why the ID of the bundled version is changing?
Yeah, so if we take a look at if we just take a look at the reference, for example, I have given the ID of like this
Okay.
remote URL instead of just using, for example, reference. And this means that, yeah, and it's because you can, but you can't really use just a name for it, because the way that the bundling of JSON schemas work and that in terms of how references are resolved, I wouldn't be able to have this reference and then the ID being different. That wouldn't work.
Okay.
But yeah. And that is the breaking change, basically. That's the only breaking change. Is that all of these IDs are using this URI format instead.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I see you have next major already. That
Yes.
is good. Okay, cool. Then yeah, I definitely promise I will have a look on it this week.
Thank you. Do you have any comment, Fran? Anything I want to? I guess that's. Anyone have any questions for that? Okay, so me and Magic have been going back and forth a little bit today about. I propose that we should move our bindings JSON schema files to the JSON schema spec repository, because in my mind, bindings are part of the specification. It's just tailored towards like very specific use cases or users. And me and Magic have been going a little bit back and forth in terms of where should they belong. And in terms of contribution, should we force what's it called, like binding code owners to go into the spec JSON schema repository to change stuff there, as well as in this bindings repository. And we haven't come to like any concrete conclusion. I don't know if you want to jump in, Maciek. No.
Oh, you continued the discussion after my comment? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so many comments.
Yeah, I mean, I only propose these champions for the bindings inside the binding repository and JSON schema. Yeah, exactly. And the binding spec this is not the same as an API spec. So my only concern about the JSON schema, where exactly we should have in the bindings or in the JSON spec, sorry, the spec JSON schemas repository, is that people then have to create the two separate pull requests only with very minor change. Yeah, so it probably decreased the developer experience.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind too, is that if you change something, that means you have to do 2 PRs in 2 different repos. And, you know, we tend to take a long time to approve PRs. So there'll be this lag in time where they're out of sync with each other. You know, that's a concern I have. And I'm just new to this idea. I haven't read the comments or anything. I hope I'm not repeating anything that was said, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind, is that they're going to get out of sync.
Yeah, exactly. I propose to have the JSON schema inside the binding repository, and then have the workflow to copy that JSON schemas to the another repository and publish to the npm. Yeah, it's another way to do that. But you only make the one pull request, changing the specification in the Markdown, then also changing the JSON schema, and the workflow done the rest of things. Yeah.
What do you mean, like binding spec is not the same as async API spec?
Because
Like-
you have the another version of SNTP. I mean, you can use the same binding in, for example, 2.1, 2.2 of Essence API. Yeah, and you
Mhm.
have also the another version of the binding. So
Mhm.
from my perspective, the binding is something like the specification agnostic at the moment, of course. Yeah,
But
maybe-
binding Markdown files are specifications.
yeah, in this way.
So that's what I only meant there. Like that's why I'm saying it's the same situation as with JSON schema for us and API spec. Like we split those because JSON schemas are it's tool, it's not spec. While Markdown file for async API and Markdown files for binding, they're specs. So that's why they have to be separated. So when you make a change in JSON schema, you just release a JSON schema. You don't release, you don't make a spec release. So yeah, I mean, contributor experience is not cool, but it's basically the same that you anyway have to do with the async API spec. You have to always make 2 PRs if you affect the JSON schema, but sometimes it's just 1 PR. It really depends. So yeah, so that was my my statements there. Even though I was the first one that when Kuda started working on the schemas, I told him like, no, it should be in the bindings. It's natural. But when I started thinking about it more, then it's the best would be like, what's the point of the workflows? You just, and especially that Jonas now did this tough job with the coupling all these references into separate files to manage them. So plugging in binding schemas would be super easy now with JSON schemas of async API spec.
My only concern might be that we still don't really know how we want to do the versioning of bindings, which is because at the moment, there are no restrictions on whether you can use one binding for version 1 or version 2 of the spec. There's nothing that says that you can share them, but in a sense, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because the bindings are kind of tuned to what the spec doesn't allow natively that the protocol needs, right? But we have no formal format of doing this. Like there's no rules. There's nothing that has been defined yet. They are still kind of like up in the air. So even if we move the JSON schema files, would that mean that like where should they live in the repository? Because at the moment we have all the definition for all the spec versions here, right? Should we have a bindings folder that then has versions for each binding? And how should we reference them inside the like for the spec itself? How should we reference the binding schemas here if we have no idea how the versions will match up? As I have no answer for it yet, but it's kind of like.
But do we need to do this matching? Like, because like when you like, let's say binding for Kafka, if it's 1, 2, 3, whatever version of the binding, it's anyway like it should work with any version, right, of the spec.
Well,
Because it's
except that,
independent.
you know,
At least major version. Yeah.
but bindings are attached to like channels or messages or whatever. And if in version 3 of the spec, if we're going to change the way that we're dealing with channels, for example, that could sort of make the bindings invalid, right? Like we're talking about reusing channels, for example, things like that. So
Okay.
it could be, we could get into a point where the bindings just don't make sense with the new spec. That's the problem.
Yeah, makes sense. But then shouldn't we just follow what we have with generator? Like when you have a template and you say that this template is works with all the versions prior the next major.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what we could do is as we develop version 3, we can see whether any changes we propose are going to break the bindings or not and deal with it then. Or we can plan ahead and give ourselves some flexibility and say, well, let's assume that like we have the freedom to make breaking changes that will break the bindings. Therefore, we'll have to do something like that. But like, for example, like the binding that we've got for Solus works with version 2 and version 2.1. And, it says that it works with version 2 because I wanted so that if somebody's using a parser version 2, that they can parse the binding. If they bump up the parser to 2.1, then I don't want to say, well, you can't use the Solus binding version anymore because it's sort of attached to version 2. Well, it does work with 2.1 as well. So I don't know, maybe I'm not sure how to deal with that. Like at one point you say there is some future version that'll break it. Like version 2.1 does not break my version 2 binding, but version 3 might break my version 2 binding. So I don't have a clear idea of how to fix that in my head, but I don't know, that's an issue.
I think don't we have an issue for this? I can't remember where it is. I just looked, but don't we have an issue for this binding version discussion?
Yeah, probably the Geralt created in the specification repository, as I remember. We'll check that.
Yes, it is. Found it. So Geralt made this, and maybe we should move it to the bindings repository, but yeah, it's definitely something we have to keep in mind. Also for just like, even if we don't move the JSON schema files, it's still something we have to consider for version 3, because it's just a natural thing to what's it called, like not address but look into. I can't remember the word.
I mean, it has to be in the scope for 3.0, right? Because
yes,
we will break. We'll break, like the bindings will not work as before.
Well, we don't know for sure yet whether they'll work or whether they won't work.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, I have to switch meetings. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no,
Bye.
I see you, man. But yeah, this was what you said as well, right, Lucas?
Like in generator, yeah. That we.
Yeah. But yeah, it's something we probably have to take up again. Maybe have a full discussion about. Let's see. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add to that discussion?
Would be good only because we have few so in bindings repo, the structure of the ownership is done in the way that you have some generic owners, but we also already managed to identify some binding specific owners. So there are a few folks already that we should definitely ping directly in the issue to get their opinion.
Should we move this issue to bindings? Or want
I
to
th-
just ping them here.
Yeah, I think ping here as well, because it's also it might be some change in the spec that at the end we'll come up with, although I don't think so, but yeah.
I'm gonna ping them after the meeting then.
Yeah.
All of the code owners for visibility, and I'm gonna share it on Slack as well.
Awesome.
That was it. Does anyone have anything else they want to discuss or bring up?
Just if I can use you, if you're on the call, during these 2 weeks when I was out, like all this next major, it's all configured already. Everything works. No help from me is needed. Like there's release pipeline. If we do something in the parser, it goes to generator, etc.
I still have to double check. I have this down here. I wanted to double check in terms of what repositories are ready. I did plan to do it today, but let's see.
Okay.
And I'll make sure to ping you if anything is missing. I think Fran created all of them, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if the repository itself is set up to support it, like the release pipeline, but I'm gonna double check that as well.
I'm not sure if I created all of them, but I remember creating it, I think at least 2. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And in this next major in JSON schemas, it's configured. So if we merge split out definitions, it will create 300 major release candidate. I mean, right? That's configured.
I think it's just gonna. I actually have no idea, and I don't know what it like in terms of the Go files. I think we have to ping Sergio maybe.
Yeah, because we had this discussion to move it away.
Yeah, and we still need to change the release branches here. I see.
Yes, but if we move Node.js out, then it has to be done in a different way.
I can't remember when we merge to the next branch. Do you need to create the first release yourself, like you do when it's your very first release of a repository, or does that happen automatically?
No, that's automated. So
Okay.
I mean, if it's configured, then yeah, it's gonna just produce 300 next major whatever release RC, and it's not gonna be release; it's gonna be pre-release, like with other stuff. Manually, you have to create a release only if you do it for the very first time, and it's only because I mean, it would work without manual release, but we just don't like to release majors, so we prefer to start with 001 instead of 100. That's why we do manual.
But the released version for this will be next major -1, right?
I'm gonna tell you exact name. So exact name will be V3, because now it's 2, right? Yeah, it's gonna be V3.0.0-next-major.1, and then next release will be .2.3, etc.
Perfect. Yeah.
Can you say again? I missed the dash.
Yeah. Oh, luckily, I noticed that it's recorded, so I'm not going to answer this question. I'm polite, at least online.
I mean, it's a valid answer, right? You can watch the recording.
Ding.
All right, folks. I think that was it for today. Unless you have anything else. Last minute. All right. Thank you all. See you next time. Or not.
Just wait 1 second, please, because I want to test one thing. Because we're here, and I just need to test if because I was able to change this thinking out loud to 3.0 meeting on YouTube. Just want to check if yes, okay, it's also possible to do it on LinkedIn. Okay, cool. Never mind. I was just checking something in regards to the meeting as a service. All good. All good.
No worries. I'll see you folks later. Thanks for participating.
Cheers.
See ya.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.